motorsportian position where you say, right, that's the way to go, that's where we should be. We strongly believe we are right.
Real flyer, this car.
First time I drove the GTR, I just immediately thought, this is incredible.
It's fastest by a mile. Here he comes. Nice, clean lines.
The GTR was an extraordinary car to drive. I mean, it was big power, come out of corners with...
By far the fastest Group A touring car you'll ever see on Mount Panorama.
I got an invite to sort of be involved in the Nissan team when it started going road racing. And the Bluebird was the car we had.
Oh, quick across the top is George Fury.
Here he comes across Castrol Curve, using all of the racetrack, then some.
Oh, no, Jimmy Richards has hit the wall.
Red flag is out.
This would still be a lonely time for Freddie Gibson.
Oh, no, George, hang on to it.
There's Freddie having a little think.
Fred was a fantastic operator in that. He knew what he wanted, and he did a great job behind the scenes pulling it all together.
What an outstanding debut so far for the new Nissan GTR model.
We really hit the technology strap when we got to those cars, and they changed the face of motorsport.
This is a moment I'm sure he and Fred Gibson have been waiting for.
Checkered flag, Jim Richards, Nissan. The whole exercise has been worthwhile for Fred Gibson Motorsport. Jubilant scenes.
It's been a long time here. That's what we come here to do, is win the race, and hopefully today we were going to do it, and we have done that.
I can't believe it, he said.
A wonderful day today, a wonderful day in particular for Nissan.
Nissan, that's his car.
Hello everybody, thank you very much. Yes, welcome, and it's a great pleasure to say hi to another episode of the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. And today we've got another brand new venue, and this one has got a great automotive heritage. This is the very location that Robert Shannon started this business back in 1979, 35 years ago. Now, on today's program, if you're a follower of motorsport in the 80s and 90s, you could not ignore the extraordinary success of Gibson Motorsport and Nissan Motorsport in Australia. So today we're going to catch up with the people that were behind the scenes that made that team. We're also going to have a very close look at the car that started it all for them with Mark Osler. And as always, Aaron Noonan joins us once again, and he's got some gems from the vault. And our first guest today is the man behind the powerhouse team. He's the one that got it all started and glued together the extraordinary success, and he's a racing legend in his own right. Would you please welcome our special guest, Mr. Fred Gibson. Hello, mate. Welcome. You okay there?
Thanks, Noel. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Fred. Thanks for spending some time with us.
It's a pleasure.
I reckon when I first met you, you were Sydney-based, and my recollection in those days was that you ran a business called Road and Track.
Still there.
Still there in Sydney, and so you were one of the drivers that kind of mixed an industry role together with actually driving the race cars on weekends.
Yeah, I probably started with an MGA in 65, where it was, so I think 64. And I used to work for Electricity Commission as a fitter and turner. And I decided to start around business, and so I started a business in Rio called Road and Track, and just servicing, off-the-road cars. And that became pretty profitable for me, doing performance stuff and driving with Ford. And also I used to look after all the Ford Motor Company press cars in New South Wales.
I want to talk about the 1967 victory with Harry, the late Harry Firth. We sadly lost him in the recent past, and that was a huge mark in your career. It was a great moment and a special memory, I'm sure.
A special memory, but I think particularly how I got the drive, because I didn't know I was even driving the car the week before the race virtually. And the thing is, I got a phone call from Ford PR, Max Ward in Sydney, and Wardy said to me, do you want to drive Bathurst with Harry Firth? And I said, what are you kidding? What are you talking about? What happened was Frank Matthews was going to drive with Harry, and he was overseas and got committed to a Can-Am race over there, couldn't get back in time. I knew Frank pretty well from his Goodyear days. He was the Goodyear tyre dealer and the sports car I drove. So he recommended I'd be half a chance, and he suggested I drive the car with Harry, and that's how it happened. I did meet Harry till Friday night at Bathurst.
Is that right?
Never
It
met
worked
him.
out okay, didn't it?
Yeah. I had a car to drive on Wednesday, I think a press car or something, around the circuit, around the road at Road and Track.
You were a Ford factory driver for 7 years, which is quite an achievement in its own right. And so there's sort of distinctive chunks in your career, both as a driver and as a team owner and team manager. And one of the things that we found particularly fascinating through the series is to be able to rake up all kinds of old stuff. And you were used in a television commercial that Ford had in response to Holden's radial tuned suspension.
Correct.
And here's a bit of the vision. 1978, you're the driver here, driving between your colleagues. You couldn't do that in modern times, but it was a big deal in those days, the battle between Ford and Holden.
Absolutely.
And the corresponding marketing campaigns. That looked pretty scary.
You know why I drove it?
Why?
Because Moffat wouldn't do it without me driving the car.
We know that.
Is that right?
And in fact, this is what he had to say back at the start of the series.
Oh, God.
We'll get all the Ford drivers to do what we did on one condition, that Freddie Gibson was the driver of the car. I wasn't going to have Buddy Gossey coming up with my buddy backside.
True story, true story.
Yeah, so I mean, good news is that you're both telling the same story, which is particularly good. But what are your recollections of that? Because that looked like a heap of fun.
Well, it was really, and the thing is, knowing Gossey the way we know Gossey, why wasn't he the driver? Like, he was dark about it, and I think he said to me, you know, I went pretty close to him because I touched his overalls, you reckon, so I think, of Gossey. So no, it was good, but that's what we did back in those days. And Ford Motor Company were very supportive of doing those things to try and, you know, get one up on Holden. Yeah.
Well, if you were watching our program way back earlier in the series, you would have seen that television commercial. Alan described it, and then we had a look at Holden's version as well. But what we've now found is the behind-the-scenes shoot of the making of the Ford television commercial.
6 special plywood cutouts were set up on the track for the test runs, while a very apprehensive cameraman looked on. Fred had to be certain that the cutouts, he himself, and the Ford Falcon were all set up precisely, as those wooden mock-ups were soon to be replaced by 6 of his mates. And on the final run, there could be no room for error. After changing into their racing gear, they immediately set about getting on the right side of Fred, possibly to ensure that Fred would be on the right side of them when it counted. One final check, and the moment of truth had arrived. And the result? A dramatic 92.31 kilometers per hour, and the last sequence provided the perfect opportunity to unwind and get down to some serious acting.
His time last year and this year are separated by 14.7 seconds, but he has improved by nearly 15 seconds in his lap times, and he is flying in the turbocharged Bluebird, flinging it tail first into the men, up the mountain, up towards the park area now. This is where it's quick. We'll see how brave this man is as he comes up the top of the mountain.
Well, on practice time so far, the pole sitter in this year's race is going to have to do somewhere around the 2:18 mark, maybe even under that. So let's see what Masahiro can do as he comes around to take the checkered flag. The time going at 2:18.8.
As the Bluebird in action, 1982 Masahiro Hossein, he qualified on the second row of the grid, position 3, not a bad performance, and when you look at that car, it's remarkable that it could punch out that lap time. Our special guest today is Fred Gibson. We're talking Gibson Motorsport and the early Nissan Motorsport era. Fredo, when they first came to circuit racing, they'd come off the back of a very successful period in rallying. What was the switch all about? Why did they decide to move the focus?
I think when Howard Marsden moved from Ford to Nissan as product planning manager and sort of motorsport manager, he made a decision where they were going to sell the Bluebird as a road car and the product, and he thought they've got enough out of rallying and they'd move into circuit racing. I suppose the Bluebird was the car they picked. It was supposed to be for the 3-litre class. It was never supposed to be an outright car, and that's when it started off being like that's what it should have been. We extended that and tried to do too much with the car.
And how did you become then involved as a driver? Because as I said before, you were very much a Ford man in the early days. So how did you become a Nissan man?
Well, just then HM rang me up, Howard rang me up, and just said I was interested in coming and being involved in the Nissan program. I did a lot of testing for Ford back in the Ford days. Probably I did all the testing because Alan hated testing. So I did all the testing, and he knew probably I had some ability to probably do that. So I got the job of sort of, you know, trying to bring the Bluebird along and educate George.
And educate George. We'll get to that. So 81, 82, 83 for you as a driver in the Bluebird. And as I said in the little intro piece before there, you delivered the first win in that car. So fond memories?
Oh, it was a great Sydney car because they weren't long races because the car wasn't very reliable and they were short races and it was a circuit that suited the car pretty much.
Very pleased to be able to say that the actual car that we're talking about is here right now in the building. And to focus on the Bluebird, here's Mark Osler.
Thank you, Neil. And yes, indeed, this is the actual car that George Fury drove into the history books at Bathurst in 1984 when he took pole position for the Bathurst 1000. His scintillating time of 2 minutes 13.85 seconds will stand as an all-time record with the full-length Conrod straight in place. You know, it was the first time a turbocharged car had taken pole position for Bathurst, also the first time a Japanese car had achieved that feat as well. Why was it so fast? Well, it was 1,100 kilos, so it was quite light. And under the bonnet, only a 1.8 litre four-cylinder engine, which really doesn't sound that impressive. What you've got to remember, though, it had a huge turbocharger, a huge intercooler attached to it, and it could produce huge grunt. In race trim, about 350 brake horsepower, but when they wanted to really crank it up for one of those all-out qualifying laps, they could get more than 400 brake horsepower out of this engine. That's 5 litre V8 grunt in a car that only weighed about 1,100 kilos. Incredible, that's why it was so fast. And look at the aero on it. Huge air bucket at the back, huge spoiler on the front, enormous wheel arch flares to cover this really big rubber. You know, it was an outstanding feat by George Fury that day, and it certainly painted a very bright picture for the future of Nissan and turbocharging in Australian touring car racing.
Thanks, Mark. Nissan Bluebird. And I'd also like to acknowledge the hard work and energy and enthusiasm of the owner of the car here who's with us today. Brian Henderson has brought the car down. Thanks very much, Brian, for bringing the car. Round of applause, please. This car has not been seen publicly for decades, so to have it on our program today is very special. Also like to thank Paul Berringer for his hard work in getting the car down from Queensland. So thanks again, Brian. You mentioned George Fury before. So rally background, great bloke. We haven't seen him for a long period of time. Tell me a little bit about George, and then I want to tell another backstory. Good operator?
George is a great driver, great guy. Particularly when he came out of rallying. I didn't know him much in rallying, but I met him naturally going touring car racing. And I took him to Oran Park probably 2 days a month at Oran Park in the stands. It was turned into a tarmac car. And we did driver training up there, and I couldn't stop him flicking and catching it. And that's what because that's what you do in a rally car, apparently. I don't know, a rally car, you flick it and you catch it, and you flick it and you catch it. And we ran Oran Park, we were flicking and catching the car. So he would have done thousands of kilometres around Oran Park learning to drive on the tarmac on a race circuit. Yeah.
He could drive, no doubt about that. But one of the things that intrigued me, and the reason I also wanted to bring up the point, was on the way to the Shannons Legends of Motorsport, you stopped with the car at Winton, and George reacquainted himself with the car. That's a fantastic story, and drove it.
George hasn't seen the car since pole position weekend at Bathurst.
You're kidding me.
Never seen the car, never driven the car. And Brian made the offer, and I said, we'll ring George. And my old mate Richo, he did the negotiation, you know, he's like.
He's a broker.
He's a broker. He's probably got 10% as well. So the thing is, he brokered the deal with George. We asked George to come and drive it. He didn't to start with. He said, no, I'm a farmer, I do my farming. And anyway, we persuaded him to come and do it last Friday. And he drove the car, and that's the first time the car has been on the track since it's been rebuilt.
Wow, that's a great story, isn't it? Fantastic, brilliant.
And George thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. It would have been a wonderful thing to do. Let's have a look now at a magic moment at Bathurst. George Fury at the wheel of the Bluebird.
A very quick little car. He's going to have a problem here with, as you can see, bringing on the turbo and the tyres on the coal side. It's going to give him a wild ride around the top of the mountain if he hasn't got heat into the tyres.
Real flyer, this car. Oh, quick across the top is George Fury. He is right in the thick of it in Hardy's Heroes. Go, 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 says George Fury down to the bottom of Conrod Straight. He's about to make the left-hander take the checkered flag for his lap of Hardy's Heroes, and it's going to be a quick time.
2:13.850, a staggering time for George Fury. He's got pole at the moment.
These are the conditions that suit the turbo?
Oh, very much so. But even so, I didn't think we could get into a 13, so I'm very happy with that.
Skyline vehicle is to be the 2-litre, 4-cylinder, 16-valve, turbocharged, fuel injected, intercooled, top-of-the-line technology. The advantage in going this way, we use technology that we have learned in our Bluebird program of the last 3 years. Secondly, we've got a vehicle where we'll have sufficient power and performance to keep with the big boys, but our weights will be down, so we have handling advantages with the little cars, and we won't have tyre problems. So in all formulae, motorsport or anything, there's always that medium position where you say, right, that's the way to go, that's where we should be. We strongly believe we are right. So the package is that vehicle, 2 cars all the way through 1986, and we're looking forward to it.
That was the late Howard Marsden talking there about Nissan's entry into what was to become Group A racing. Fred Gibson is our special guest. And Fred, this is where you took over the business as well. So, and I've never really understood the backstory of that. At what point did you put your hand up and say, look, I reckon I should be bolting this together?
I didn't put my hand up. I got asked.
Well, that's the best way to do it.
Howard rang me one day and said, FG, would you like to sort of, and I thought, manage the race team? And I thought, oh, well, it's a new era. It was a new car. And I thought that was the go. He said, come down to Melbourne and have a chat about it. Anyway, when I went to Melbourne to talk about it, they gave me the race team. And I took over running the race team. There wasn't much there because it had been run down because Howard, being the product planning manager, hadn't spent a lot of time in the race shop. The guys run themselves. So the DR30 was sitting there, and that was about 2 mechanics left in it. So I come down and took the whole thing over in 85, but we couldn't run.
Although these guys weren't out there in the main game in the Touring Car Championship, Nissan was smart enough to make sure that they still had a presence in national motorsport, as Aaron explains in The Vault.
And Neil, they certainly put on some of the most amazing racing during 1985. Have a look at this vision. One make Pulsar Exa series that followed the Touring Car Championship around the country. Some of the biggest crashes you've ever seen. I'd hate to know what the repair bill was for some of this. This is Adelaide International Raceway. Guys helping one another around the corners. I'd hate to have been the driving standards observer for this series. You would have chucked the rule book out the window. Have a look at these guys going absolutely nuts. They rolled them, they crashed them, they stove them in. Fred, that must have cost an absolute packet.
It did. It did.
Who was paying those bills?
Nissan.
Thank goodness. I can remember it strongly, vividly. There was some just wild driving.
Nissan got enormous publicity out of that, but you've got to think about the mechanics we had that maintained those in the race weekend, because we had them to get them all out the next race.
Now, one of the other things that's been very important in your motor racing background is the time, effort and energy you spent bringing on young guys. So notably Glenn Seaton, you played a very big role in Glenn's emergence as a professional driver.
Well, really, Neil, I had to set up a new team. When I moved to Melbourne in 85, had to set up a new team. We didn't have a lot of people, and the people I had didn't like the way I was going to do things, so they disappeared as well, so I had nobody. So I wanted an engine man, and Bo Seaton, I contacted him because I drove with him at Bathurst, and also I knew Glenn, and because Bo used to do a lot of work for us in Sydney and doing things on my other cars and that engine work. So I asked Bo, would he come to Melbourne and probably give Glenn a drive? So I moved him down to Melbourne. Then I got a young guy used to work with me at work, Trevor Jones. He come down, so we just accumulated more people.
Yeah, and that worked really well. And a quick word for Gary Scott, because he's a guy that we don't see terribly much of these days, although I did see him not too long back, but he was a good operator in his day too.
Gary had a big ego, a super driver. He wants someone to go quick, he would do it. He's still around, and he still comes to our historic races now, and he did a super job.
He did do a super job, because at Bathurst in 1986, he grabbed this pole position.
Car number 15 is the Nissan Skyline. At the wheel is Gary Scott. And Gary, of course, has fitted into the Nissan team very, very well indeed during 1986, and actually has led George Fury in most of the practice sessions so far this week at Mount Panorama.
Fastest of the turbo cars throughout the week.
Here he comes across Castrol Curve, using all of the racetrack, then some. More. Down through Bridgestone.
Scott leaves the braking as late as possible, comes down now into the corner and turns to take the checkered flag at the end of his high lap, puts the front wheel up on the strip there. There's the flag. Let's check the time.
That was a...
very gutsy drive.
It was a very gutsy drive. I was trying to find the right words.
First I've ever seen that.
It's probably just as well you left it so long. It's a bit scary to look at, but he had the thing absolutely on the limit, didn't he?
She had full boost as well.
I think it had everything going on.
You can always tell a turbo car by the roar.
Yeah, and the black smoke.
The black smoke. Yep, exactly.
Fuel going through unburnt everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about the fact that you nurtured Glenn Seaton into the role, but you also helped Mark Scaife significantly as well, and so you were really responsible for bringing Mark into the professional end of the game.
That was a bit of a problem, wasn't it?
That's right. Some decisions are good, some are bad.
Yes, actually, how I got Mark involved was it was a mate of Aceto's, Glenn, and I said to Bo one day, I said, who's a good young guy that we probably should bring into the team, because I was about youth and have young guys and then sort of nurture them along. And he said, oh, this young guy, Scaife in Sydney, that drives. Does he drive right? He drives in a laser series, I think it was. Okay. So unbeknownst to anyone, I hopped on the plane, went to Sydney and watched the Oran Park, a laser race. And I think I missed the first race, but the race I saw Mark in was that he started the rear of the grid. And I thought, this would be interesting. Anyway, he went from the rear of the grid and he won the race. So I thought, well, he's got to be half a chance, and Bo thinks he's all right. And I knew his dad. That's another story, his dad. So the thing is, I spoke to his family about it, and he come down to work for us as a gopher. No drive, no nothing. You come down, you work as a gopher, sweep the floor, do whatever, and there might be an opportunity to get a drive. Hence, Mark Scaife arrived. Yep.
And indeed, he does. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Scaife, put your hands together. Hi, mate. Right here. Thank you.
1967 Bathurst winner.
Oh, here we go. I knew that would come up. 1967 Bathurst winner. Yeah. Tell them the story, Scaife.
It's the year I was born.
So you two got it all out of the way now, so that we can
he's been waiting all week to do that.
He's been rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing. Scaife, fond memories for you hooking up with these guys?
Look, it was unbelievable, Croppo. It was a time in my life where I was basically, privateer racing. The opportunity to come and work with Fred and to drive, a factory drive, yourself to drive for the factory at any stage is unbelievable. And I would have swum from Wyong to Melbourne, and at that stage it was
drowned.
Yeah. At that stage it was on a wing and a prayer a little bit, but I worked well with Fred. The team was on the up. And it was great for Fred to take a punt on Glenn Seaton and myself.
And in 1987, they started to make things click and work. And in fact, Glenn Seaton got a win up in the early rounds of the championship at Calder and then later in the series. Let's have a look at some of the fine work.
Leads the score for Seaton. The first at Calder, fourth Simmons, second Lakeside, looking good for a win here as he comes out of Yokohama for the last time. Checkered flag at the ready, and he is going to do it. 21-year-old Glenn Seaton. Nissan know how. They take round 4.
There's Glenn Seaton, car number 30, pursued by Peter Brock.
Oh, how easy was that? And so does Colin Bonds. I think you'll find that he's got problems, major ones.
Welcome back. Shannons Legends of Motorsport. Our special guest today, Fred Gibson and Mark Scaife. We're talking Gibson Motorsport and those early Nissan Motorsport years. Boys, in 1988 you went on to the HR31 car, the 6-cylinder turbocharged car. And why are you laughing?
I was just shocking.
He's laughing already. That wasn't supposed to be funny. But it was a difficult car, was where I was going with that, certainly in the early part of the season.
Yes, it wasn't, Neil. It was just unreliable and took a lot of sorting out. Suspension didn't work that well. And it took us a while, to overcome the problems. Gearbox.
That was Bathurst 88. How did that go?
Yeah, blew the gearbox. Oh, Bathurst 88. But we were going home within an hour as the race started. Going packing up. And the marketing director said to me, "What am I going to tell the board on Monday?" I can't say what I said to him. And he said, "Well, I'm going to tell the board on Monday what happened." I said, "That's your problem."
That's right. Yeah. That's a corporate headache.
Yeah.
But you had a bigger headache, in fact, before you even got to the actual race event, because back in those days, we used to have an annual media and test day at Bathurst, which was an opportunity to take people for rides and talk up the event. But it was also effectively an unofficial test day where everybody went 11/10ths for the whole day. Here's what happened to Glenn Seaton in the lead up to that event.
These things aren't supposed to happen on practice days. No, that's right, Mike. I just came down through the kink, just sitting behind Larry, and went to turn for the kink, and it just leapt straight off the circuit into the grass. And as soon as it hits the grass, it speeds up another 20 mile an hour. So it's given you a fairly wild roll. How many times did it get upside down? I don't really know. I lost count after the first couple. I just wanted to stop in a hurry.
How do you feel?
Well, I feel like a new Nissan Skyline and a Tui draft as well.
Isn't that outstanding? Oh dear, that was Glenn Seaton there, and it's a different Glenn Seaton to the one that we spend time with today, but how's the look on his face? You can tell that rattled him.
It smashed him up. He said to me I wasn't going to drive again. He was over and out, wasn't he?
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
So by 1989, Glenn had gone out on his own at this stage, probably as a result of that. It probably scared him out of the team. However, George Fury was still with you. This bloke was pushing hard to get a race seat, and Jimmy Richards had left Peter Brock, which opened up an opportunity to bring Jim to the team. Good choice?
Good choice, good choice. That was something we looked at because we had Glenn as a young guy, then Mark, and I'd learned a lot about that. And I realised we probably need like a senior guy to give these young guys some guidance, particularly on the racetrack, I mean. And the thing is, so I went home one night and spoke to Christine and said to Christine, who's somebody I can try and pinch and get to drive with the team? You write down 6 drivers and I'll write down 6 drivers on a bit of paper, and we wrote down. Anyway, cut a long story short, the top of both at least were Jim Richards. So she said, you can't get Jim. I said, I'll get Jim. So I went out. Naturally, with money, you can buy Jim.
Which is precisely what we use today. Please bring Jim Richards out, yeah.
That go well?
Hey, that worked perfectly. How's that for a line? See, that's a trick that still works to this very day. Jimmy, thanks very much for spending time. It's always fun to spend time with mates who beat up on you, isn't it? I mean, you know, this is something you shouldn't have to do.
No, that's a good fun, because I've got something on them too, you see.
But obviously a great opportunity for you to hook up with these guys at that point where you'd left Brock's at the end of '88, and that program at that point was messy, and this turned out to be a very good move for you.
No, it certainly did, and I like the fact that it was with Nissan in particular, because we probably really weren't supposed to win. You know, the Sierras were dominant at the time, and it was just a good challenge, and it was something different. It was the only Nissan team basically in the country, so it was really good.
And at this point, as I said a few moments ago, Mark, you had a limited program, so it was a big point in your career as well, where you're trying to make ground, you're trying to impress this guy, and you're trying to match yourself to people like George and Jim.
Oh, that part was unbelievable, Crompo. For me, I learnt more in that stage probably than any other point of my career. Now, Jim was the best touring car driver in the world at that point. We used to always say about how nice he was, all those guys, you know, the Brocks and the Jims and the Perkins, etc., how nice they were on cars. Man, it was a new lesson of how hard you had to drive the cars.
Yeah.
And that part for me, I'm sure you knew, you were paying the bills, it was outstanding. It was something I learned a lot from.
Can I just break in there for a little minute? We had a car that really had to drive the wheels off to be competitive against the competition. And I remember when Percy drove with us in New Zealand, and when he came to drive with us, I said, Win, I want you to drive the car like you hate it. You know, I said, you just drive the car as hard as you have to drive it, do whatever you've got to do to make it go quick in it.
He crashed it, destroyed it.
He did. But
he obviously hated it.
He hated it. But the thing is, he said, FG, I've never been told that before in my life. And I said, because that's the way we've got to drive our cars. Yeah. You know? And that's what we did.
But you were angry with him. I mean, he cost you the '87 Touring Car Championship.
Yes, you did, Richard. You punted Cito off. He was going to win the championship, and you crashed in the door and put him off the track. I'll always remember that.
I've got to say I am guilty.
It's the first time he's ever owned up to something.
Not that you're carrying a grudge as a result of any of that. That's a little bit scary, boys. It was an inspired choice, though, to be able to grab Jim, because clearly by the time you got into the next year, 1990, that delivered you a championship, and in fact the car is here with us right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was.
What was that, Neil? Was it a championship, did you say?
Yes.
Good payback.
Richo's just scoring here. Yeah.
No, it was good because Jim had the experience. He's, as Mark said, one of the best drivers in the world, and to drive with us was a pleasure for us to have him with us. We learned a lot off him. I think he learned a lot off us because in some ways we were very, what can I say, under pressure to perform, but we had fun doing it. And as we all say here, we're laughing here today, we went motor racing very seriously, but we enjoyed what we did.
All right. Well, one of the things that we want to do is also just celebrate some of the special material that we've found in the 7 Volt, and Aaron Noonan is the one to do that for us.
Well, Neil, the boys talked earlier about how the Sierras were dominating. They won every round in 1988. They won all the rounds in 1989. That was until a very wet day at Winton Motor Raceway. George Fury brought it home to win in the Skyline HR31. The last lap, though, you could say, was quite unbelievable. Just about everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Check this out as we go to the break on Shannons Legends of Motorsport.
One more lap, perhaps, for... I make it 59 minutes and 37 seconds.
Perseverance pays off in any business, Mike, and you're looking at it paying dividends.
Oh, no, George, hang on to her. Oh. My goodness me, the farmer got excited.
Well, it just shows that you can't lose concentration for a millisecond around here.
And look who's behind him. That's Brock, 3 car lengths behind in the scrap for the checkered flag. It is not over. They come down the back straight now for the final time. Madecki pulling out to try and get Johnson. He's already passed Johnson. Brock making up ground now on the Nissan. Oh, one of the shell cars has gone in front of them. If he comes back, he could cop Fury. No, he misses him. Goodness gracious me. Here comes George Fury. Last corner, checkered flag. The Sierra domination is broken. George Fury wins at Winton Motor Raceway. They really have been busy with this car with the computer experts the last couple of days here at Wanneroo. I think someone suggested they made more program changes than Broadcom. But he's hanging in there behind the Sierras. But the man he has to keep behind him is Dick Johnson. At the moment, he's 2 back behind Jim Richards.
That was Jim working hard at the wheel of the GTR. Mark had debuted the car earlier in South Australia at the Mallala racetrack. That was Jimmy's opportunity to drive the car. Fred, one of the things that I've never really been totally clear on is what was the basis, well, a lot of things really, but what was the basis of the GTR project? I mean, at what point did Nissan as a motor company in Japan say, we're going to go and build that race car?
It was in response to the Sierra virtually, what Ford Motor Company did. And I said before, they were very anti-building special cars. And even this wasn't a special car, it was just another road car, but it was a special road car, wasn't it really? And they decided, like, you know, a twin-turbo 6-cylinder, and I at Vintage, we were going to get a V6 twin-turbo when they first told me it was going to be a 6-cylinder twin-turbo, as it didn't turn out to be. And that made it a difficult car in that way too, Noel, because it was 6 cylinders long over the front axle. So that made it a very difficult car to get to handle. The thing that saved us in some ways, which it did with the HR31... The drivers. God, it's a shocker. It's a shocker, isn't it? The HR31 would beat the Sierra because it used to look after rear tyres better than the Sierra, because the Sierra had all the grunt burners tyres up. This car, and the driver. This car, because it's 4-wheel drive, it was going to beat the Sierras if we had the car handling right and going right.
1991 was a massive year for you trio. Extraordinary, you know, a lot of winning in the Australian Touring Car Championship, success at Bathurst, but particularly also for you, Mark, it was an opportunity to really come of age in a sense, wasn't it? First Touring Car Championship win that year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Neil, the part that Fred's getting to is that as we Australianised that car, we were also, between Jim and I, there was a lot of competition between us to get the best from ourselves, the best for the team, and to knock off the Sierra of the day. My first win at, I remember on the last lap, first win at Barbagallo, and I thought Richard was going to have a dive at be the last corner.
Well, that's the one that I wanted to further define there. It wasn't a championship win, but it was the first critical round win for Mark in 1991, and here it is.
So if he can hold out the team leader, Jimmy Richards. Heard Jim say earlier during a race cam chat, there certainly aren't any team orders as to who runs first and second. They race for it. And Jim was thinking about maybe a run down the inside. But the bottom turn coming up, last turn now as they come out, headed towards the checkered flag and chalk up another 1-2 to Nissan. This time it's Mark Scaife who takes the victory.
You were right. You had to cover him at turn 7.
Absolutely. I thought he was going to have a dive at me.
It's amazing how 2 drivers that don't trust each other. He's waiting to dive underneath him, he was.
Turns out this was the early version of Vettel and Webber, wasn't it? Getting stuck in it. But I was saying earlier that 91 was very important for you fellas because you did so well in the Touring Car Championship and you did so well at Bathurst. But what was also happening behind the scenes is slowly but surely your opponents were beginning to bristle, weren't they?
It wasn't good. The politics were week in, week out, getting worse. You could see with that win there, the handicapping was starting. The dramas were unfolding in terms of what the GTR was doing to the industry. And we used to have plenty of fights with Fred in terms of making sure that we were doing the best we could do, but we wanted more. You know, we wanted to win each weekend, so did Fred, but he was playing the long game in terms of what they were going to do to the car and slow it down.
It didn't really manifest itself totally in '91 though, did it? It's sort of at that period of time, the rest of the world was still starting to wake up to the fact that this was a formidable competitor.
No, it certainly was, and it got to the stage I think in '91 and towards the end of '91, that if you didn't have a GTR, you weren't going to win any races. And I think that's what made the powers to be, CAMS, put those heavy restrictions on the GTR, another 100 kilos on its weight, and then a restriction on the amount of boost we could run. So we were running 1.3 bar of boost, which is very, very mild. The series were running 2.5 bar, 2.7 bar of boost. And so we were stuck with our low boost, our heavier car, but the guys engineered and sorted it out so that it actually went faster than the year before, so it was amazing.
Yeah, amazing to be able to overcome that. After the break, we'll have more with Fred, with Mark and with Jimmy. We'll talk more about the way in which the politics unfolded, but right now let's focus on '91 and Bathurst, which for Mark Scaife was very important. First Bathurst win.
Yes, when you think of the long list of Bathurst campaigns by this company, looks like they're going to do it. And it's certainly well deserved. There's a long-time commitment to motorsport in this country and around the world. They certainly deserve the success of Mount Panorama today.
A smile breaks out on the face of Fred Gibson. Anticipation on the face of Mark Scaife. The run down to the final corner. Here he comes. The very last corner of the 1991 Tooheys 1000 at Mount Panorama Bathurst. Checkered flag, Jim Richards, Nissan. That's his car. Jubilant scenes.
As a tribute.
Yeah, they were a pretty special motor car, you know. I think they did a fantastic job, and I think Nissan have put an awful lot into motorsport over the years and had some really, really good results.
The Nissans certainly made a mark on Australian motor racing, and at the time that I was driving for Nissan in Europe, Freddie Gibson was running Nissan's Skylines here in Australia. There are a number of things like grills and front spoilers and stuff that Fred had that wouldn't fit our car for some reason. I guess they must have been different cars.
It wasn't such good luck for the rest of us. It was almost like they had a wagon with 4 horses and we were all pulling a wagon with only 2 horses.
Fred was a fantastic operator in those days of running race teams. He knew what he wanted and he did a great job behind the scenes pulling it all together. He had some great people working for him, and I really enjoyed my time with Fred at Nissan Race Team. I couldn't have asked for a better boss, and he gave me my opportunity to be a professional race driver, and I'll never forget that.
The Nissan era in the late 80s and 90s was the baddest era in my view of the whole CAMS run touring car category of Australia. I mean, it was just sheer nonsense to think you could have a fair race with a 4-wheel drive, double turbocharged thing against, you know, something that's not that, and it was always going to fail, and that's the only downside to the wins that Mark may have had, for instance. His car was so superior, and I'm certainly not trying to take anything away from Mark, but because he didn't write the rules. But it was a bad chapter, in my view, that the categories, the technical ability of each car was so mismatched that, you know, 98% of the cars on the grid were never ever going to be able to win the race, and that was not good.
So emotions ran high back then, and to a degree they still do now, and so your opponents have got a view, as they always have. What do you think?
I don't like Larry. Never liked Larry. Him and I used to fight at every race meeting. Every race meeting, there'd be a blue. There'd be a blue. And I understand Grice is saying he didn't get the good bits in England when he was there, you see.
And it's particularly tough for you to a degree, Mark, because at this stage you're a young bloke on the way up in the business. You find your feet, you get into a position to be able to achieve the things that you've always wanted to achieve as a race driver, and then there's a bit of political turmoil surrounding this, and that makes it hard from a personal perspective perspective, because it was also the first year of 5 touring car championships for you.
Yeah, and for me, that even the comment there from Larry, I mean, you know, Larry's a great competitor and we value the contribution that he's made to the sport. But at that stage, no one really understood how hard we were driving them, Cropper. I mean, I offered him, and in fact, we had a real set 2 in the driver's briefing at Lakeside, because he basically said that, you know, Jim and I were cruising around, and I said, you come and drive it. You come and drive it and see how you go.
So the cars got nobbled, didn't they? So I think you carried weight and you had some boost taken away. And I can remember when we were talking leading into this program, Fred, you were talking about the fact that, you know, the drivers, these two, didn't like that stuff. You told me a story about Richo in particular not liking it.
Well, I suppose we got the weight penalties, we got the boost penalties, 200 kilos of weight and no boost. And we had to put a show on, I suppose. So we were at Simmons Plains, and Bob Forbes had the car with Gibbs driving it. And I said to Roscoe, I want that car on pole, the Gibbs car. I'll give it full boost, because, you know, even though it was the same as our car, I want to give it full boost. So these guys, these two, you know, guys here, clowns, they started 5th and 6th on the grid or something. I screwed their boost back, and the other car was on pole position. And Jim got over the fence at Simmons Plains, threw his helmet. He said, "This is B motor racing. I don't want to do any of this stuff. This is bad. This is bad." Because there they are back there, and there's another GTO on the pole position. So it was that sort of thing we had. But who won the race? 1 and 2.
But I'm loving the fact that there was a bit of emotion from you there, Richo.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that story. The boys went then on to Holden, of course, and they had continued great success, so there was more to the story than just achieving the things that they did with Nissan. But what I'd like to do now is discuss the Shannons Club, so why not join Perkins' episode over and over and over again on Shannons Club TV. Well, boys, thank you very much for taking time out today to spend a moment with us, and I'd like to congratulate you on your individual achievements in the sport. Richo, Mark, FG, thank you very much. Give them a round of applause, please, folks. Thank you. Well done. Really appreciate it. That's it. We're out of time again. We'll look forward to your company again very soon for another episode of the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. Bye for now.
Alan Grice at speed. Grice was probably the hardest man that I've ever raced against.
The factory team was the factory team, and he was trying to beat the factory team, and on occasions he did.
2 weeks champ, Alan Grice. It's the best feeling I've had since 1986.
And almost was privateers back then, and he always gave it his best shot.
I can't believe it, he said.
A wonderful day today, a wonderful day in particular for Nissan.